Well, climate change makes restoring river ecosystems more important than ever. This is the conclusion of a series of articles in the September issue of Ecological Restoration. 7 organizations teamed up to evaluate how protecting and restoring river ecosystems and riparian areas can make them more able to cope with climate change. One of those organizations is PRBO Conservation Science. Nat Seavy is Terrestrial Research Director there, and he talked with Clean Skies about the findings. Nat Seavy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, you have worked with 6 other organizations to do this research into evaluating different river ecosystems and riparian areas. Tell us what your main conclusion is.
Well, what we wanted to look at was whether or not restoring river systems is still important, given that we know that things are really going to change as a result of the changing climate. And the conclusions of our paper is that indeed restoring these river systems is still very important, and it's a way to prepare for some of the changes that we might expect to see.
And you're talking about restoring rivers, that one of the benefits is to connect different areas to each other. What do you mean by that?
Well, one of the things that we believe will happen as a result of climate change is that some of the species will need to move around as a result of changing conditions. And we know that river systems and the vegetation along river systems are areas where animals often move, and so if we can provide more of those corridors for animals to move along, it will help make those movements easier. Are
you seeing damage that's been done or ecosystems that have been disturbed or curtailed by climate change so far?
It's difficult to see those changes right now, but what we're trying to do is prepare for the changes that we expect to see in the future.
Okay, so tell us what different things are you actually recommending to restore these different river areas? You're talking about planting specific types of plants?
Yeah, one of the things that you can do is replant vegetation along the rivers, and one of the recommendations that we make is that restorationists might want to think about planting a mix of species that can tolerate, some species that can tolerate floods, other species that can tolerate drought conditions, because we might be headed into an area, into a time when there's more uncertainty about what future conditions will be like.
Another thing is that you want to ensure that rivers actually have sufficient water to provide for periodic flooding of these natural areas?
Yes, absolutely. It's very important that we make sure that there's enough water in the rivers to support the vegetation and the wildlife that are there.
Now, this is a huge effort. You work with a lot of other organizations on this project, and this project was simply to evaluate and to come up with your recommendations. I mean, where do you take this from here, and who would pay for this this enormous effort?
Well, I think already there's a number of ongoing restoration efforts, both in the United States and throughout the world, for that matter. And what we're really interested in doing is making sure that those restoration efforts are supported and informed by the sound science that will make them successful.
Do you worry about? Do you worry that the efforts that will be undertaken won't be good enough, or what do you fear? What do you fear might happen?
I think one fear is that because, you know, I often get asked, well, if we know that climate change is going to change things, why should we bother restoring these areas? And I think our take-home message is that given that these areas will be changing, we know that there's good science that suggests that riparian restoration will be an important way to prepare for the changes that we expect to have coming.
So you do believe, in general, it's not too late to make the changes to prepare for changing conditions?
No. I think that there's still a chance for us to do that.
Right. Okay. Well, where do you take this? Where do you take this research next?
I think one of the important things is for us to try to work with trying to link the research to the people on the ground who are applying this research, and having a discussion about their challenges, and for us to understand what kind of science we need to do to help address the questions that they have.
Okay, well, best of luck with your research. Nat Seavy, lead author of the report and Terrestrial Research Director at PRBO Conservation Science. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And among the other groups involved in this project, the Nature Conservancy, the Environmental Defense Fund, and the Department of the Interior's Bureau of Land Management.